The first time I heard the call, I thought it was a prank. Everybody does. That's probably why they let new people hear it before they explain anything. The radio crackled to life at exactly 2:17 a.m. Not 2:16, not 2:18, always 2:17. The voice that came through sounded calm. Too calm, like someone ordering coffee. Search and rescue. Can anyone hear me? I'm lost. Please send help. Then silence. My partner, Mike, immediately reached for the radio. Before he could respond, our supervisor grabbed his wrist. Hard. Don't. The room went quiet. Mike looked confused. I looked confused. The call came again. Same voice. Same words. Exactly the same. Not repeated. Identical. Like a recording. Search and rescue. Can anyone hear me? I'm lost. Please send help. The supervisor switched the radio off. Nobody said anything for nearly 30 seconds. Finally, I asked the obvious question. What if somebody actually needs help? Nobody answered. Instead, the supervisor stood up and handed me a binder. The front cover had one line printed across it. Call 17 Protocol. I remember laughing. I genuinely thought they were messing with me. Search and rescue teams are full of dark humor. You spend enough time recovering bodies from mountains and forests, you develop strange coping mechanisms. I figured this was another one. Then I opened the binder, and every page was filled with incident reports. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The oldest dated back to 1974. Every report involved the same thing. A distress call received at exactly 2:17 a.m. A caller claiming to be lost. A request for rescue. And every report ended the same way. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge. Do not attempt recovery. I looked up. Nobody was smiling. Nobody looked amused. That's when I realized they were serious. I work search and rescue in a large national wilderness area. I won't say which one. Some of the people involved are still employed there. Others are missing. A few are dead. I've spent most of my career locating lost hikers, injured climbers, missing hunters, people who underestimate nature. Usually they're the logical explanation for everything. People get lost. People panic. People make mistakes. This was different because nobody knew who was making the call, and nobody could explain how it was happening. The first documented transmission came in 1974. A ranger named Harold Beck responded. At the time, nobody knew the protocol. Nobody knew there needed to be one. Harold heard a distress call, so he did what any decent ranger would do. He answered. According to archived records, the caller identified himself as a missing backpacker named Alan Morris. The strange part? Alan Morris had already been dead for 3 months. His body had been recovered in spring. The radio call came in during summer. At first, everyone assumed it was some kind of sick joke, until Harold disappeared. His search team found his truck, his equipment, his radio, everything, except Harold. The final transmission from his radio was only 3 words. I found him. Nobody ever found Harold. Or Alan. That should have ended the mystery. Instead, it became the beginning. Over the following decades, more calls came in. Always 2:17 a.m. Always someone claiming to be lost. Always asking for help. Sometimes the caller identified themselves. Sometimes they didn't. But every single voice belonged to someone who was already missing or dead. And that's where things became impossible. Because many of these people had never owned radios. Some vanished decades before the technology even existed. One caller was a missing child from 1958. Another was a hunter lost in 1949. Yet their voices came through crystal clear, like they were standing beside you. Eventually, the department created Call 17 Protocol. No responses, no investigations, no exceptions. Most of us followed the rule, at least at first. Then came Travis. Travis was 26, former military, confident, smart, the kind of guy who hated being told not to do something, especially without explanation. The call came during his second month, 2:17 a.m. Exactly. A woman's voice. Soft. Terrified. Please help me. I can see your lights. The entire operations room froze. Because that line was new, usually the callers claimed to be lost. This time she claimed she could see us. The radio repeated. Please help me. I can see your lights. Travis picked up the microphone. I still remember everyone yelling. Everyone telling him not to. He answered anyway. "Ma'am, what's your location?" Silence. Then breathing. Slow, steady breathing. And then the woman laughed. Not loudly, just enough. A quiet laugh. Like she'd finally gotten what she wanted. The transmission ended. 3 hours later, Travis was gone. His apartment was empty. His truck was parked outside. Wallet inside. Phone inside. Keys inside. No signs of struggle. No signs of departure. Nothing. Security cameras showed him leaving his apartment at 2:43 a.m., walking into the darkness barefoot, smiling. Nobody ever saw him again. After that, nobody questioned the rule. At least not openly. Years passed. Calls continued. 2:17 every morning. Different voices. Different stories. Same result. Then something happened that changed everything. One winter night, I was working dispatch. The weather was terrible. Heavy snow. Near zero visibility. Most of the park was closed. At 2:17, the radio activated. I expected another missing hiker. Instead, I heard my own voice. My blood turned cold immediately. There was no mistaking it. It was me. My voice. My breathing. Everything. The transmission lasted 6 seconds. 6 seconds that still keep me awake. "Please don't answer this call." Then it ended. The room was silent. Everyone stared at me. Nobody knew what to say, because they had heard it too. Not similar. Not close. Identical. My voice. And I had never spoken those words. At least I don't remember speaking them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the recording, listening over and over, trying to find something wrong with it. Some clue. Some sign it was fake. There wasn't one. It sounded exactly like me, including tiny speech habits I didn't realize I had. The way I paused. The way I breathed between words. The slight rasp in my voice. It was me, or something pretending to be me. A week later, things became worse, because another transmission arrived, again using my voice. This time it said, "You're getting closer." Closer to what? Nobody knew. I certainly didn't. But after that, strange things started happening. Small things, easy to dismiss. Equipment logs changing overnight. Search maps appearing on my desk that I had never requested. GPS coordinates highlighted in red. Coordinates leading to places that didn't officially exist. At first I ignored them. Then I started noticing the coordinates matched locations connected to previous call 17 incidents. Missing rangers, missing hikers, missing rescuers, all clustered around one region. A section of forest nobody talked about anymore. Not because it was restricted, because it wasn't on any map. That should have been impossible. But when I dug into archived records, I found references everywhere. Maintenance reports, search reports, incident reports, all mentioning the same area. Yet every modern map showed nothing. Just empty wilderness. The deeper I looked, the stranger things became. Entire files disappeared after I accessed them. Emails vanished. Reports changed wording. Dates shifted. It felt like someone was actively hiding something. Then I discovered a photograph. Old, black and white, taken sometime in the late 70s. A search and rescue team standing in front of a cabin. 7 people, all smiling. One of them was Travis. The problem? The photo was dated 1978. Travis wasn't born until 1995. I checked repeatedly. Same face, same scars, same person, and he wasn't the only one. Another figure in the photo matched a missing ranger from 2008. Another matched a hiker who disappeared in 2019. All standing together, decades before they should have existed. That's when I started wondering if the calls weren't coming from dead people. Maybe they were coming from somewhere else entirely. A place where time didn't work properly. A place connected to that missing section of forest. A place people entered but never truly left. I didn't tell anyone what I suspected. I should have. Maybe things would have turned out differently. Instead, I kept investigating. And one night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the call changed again. This time the voice wasn't mine. It wasn't a missing hiker. It wasn't anyone we'd ever heard before. The voice simply said, "We know you're listening." Then came a pause, and another sentence. One that made my stomach drop. "We're sending someone back." The transmission ended. Nobody slept that night. Because for the first time in 50 years, the call wasn't asking for help. It was making a promise. And 3 days later, someone appeared at the edge of the forest. someone who had been officially dead for 27 years, and he was asking for me. The call came in just after sunrise. A sheriff's deputy stationed near the eastern access road reported a man walking out of the forest. Alone, no vehicle, no equipment, no obvious injuries. At first, nobody thought much of it. People wandered out of the wilderness all the time. Lost hikers, hunters, campers. But then the deputy ran the man's name, and everything changed. The operations room fell silent when the report came through. The man identified himself as Daniel Mercer. Daniel Mercer had disappeared during a search and rescue operation in 1998. 27 years ago, his body was never found. His case file sat in our archives under presumed deceased. Yet according to the deputy, Daniel looked 40 years old, exactly the age he'd been when he vanished. Not 67, not aged, 40, the same age as the photographs. I drove to the station myself. Part of me still expected some mistake, a clerical error, a prank, anything. Instead, I walked into the interview room and saw him sitting there. Daniel Mercer. I knew his face from the file. Everybody in search and rescue did. The missing ranger who vanished during a routine recovery mission. The man looked exactly the same. Not almost. Exactly. Same hair, same build, same scar above his right eyebrow. He looked up when I entered. For a second, his expression brightened, like he'd finally found someone familiar. Then it faded. "How long?" he asked. I stared at him. "What? How long have I been gone?" His voice sounded exhausted. Not frightened, not confused, just tired. I told him the truth. 27 years. Daniel laughed. A short, broken laugh. Then he covered his face with both hands. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not possible." I sat across from him. The interview lasted 4 hours, and every answer created 3 new questions. According to Daniel, he'd been missing for 3 days. Not 27 years. 3 days. He remembered leading a search team. He remembered hearing a radio call. He remembered following the signal into a section of forest he couldn't identify on any map. Then things became strange. The signal grew stronger. Too strong. The closer he got, the less his equipment worked. GPS failed. Compass failed. Even his watch stopped. Eventually, he found a cabin. The same cabin from the old photograph. The one I had discovered in the archives. The moment he described it, my stomach tightened. Because the details matched perfectly. White walls, green roof, broken chimney, no road leading to it, no record of its existence. Daniel said the cabin looked abandoned. Then he saw movement inside. People, dozens of people, standing at the windows, watching him. At first he thought they needed help. Then he realized something impossible. Many of the faces belonged to missing persons. People whose photographs he had seen in case files. People who shouldn't have been there. When he tried to leave, the radio call started again. Only this time, it wasn't coming through his radio. It was coming from the trees. From every direction. Voices calling for help. Hundreds of them. Daniel ran. The last thing he remembered was crossing a stream. Then he woke up near the access road 3 days later. Or at least he thought it had been 3 days. The interview ended there. Not because Daniel stopped talking. Because he suddenly became terrified. He kept staring at the observation window. At first I thought he was nervous. Then I noticed his breathing. Rapid. Shallow. Panic. "What is it?" I asked. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the glass. Then he whispered, "They followed me." The room suddenly felt colder. "Who followed you?" Still staring at the window, Daniel shook his head. "They don't like it when someone leaves." Nobody slept that night. We transferred Daniel to a secure medical facility. Psychological evaluation, physical examination, DNA testing, everything. Results confirmed his identity. No doubt, no ambiguity. It was Daniel Mercer. The same Daniel Mercer who disappeared in 1998. News never reached the public. The government buried it immediately. Every report classified. Every witness warned. Officially, Daniel never returned. Unofficially, he became the most important person in search and rescue history. And then he disappeared again. 3 nights after his return, security footage showed him sitting alone in his room, watching television. At exactly 2:17 a.m., he looked toward the corner of the room. His expression changed instantly. Recognition, fear, then relief. As if he'd seen someone he knew, Daniel stood up, walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside. No guard saw him leave. No cameras captured him afterward. He simply vanished. Again, the only thing left behind was a handwritten note. 3 words. They found me. The same words Harold Beck transmitted before disappearing 50 years earlier. That should have been enough to stop me. Any sane person would have walked away. Instead, I became obsessed. Because Daniel had confirmed something. The cabin existed. The voices existed. And somewhere inside that forest was an answer. I started comparing every missing person case connected to Call 17. Hundreds of files. Thousands of pages. Most people focused on similarities. I looked for differences. Eventually, I found one. A pattern hidden inside the dates. At first, it seemed meaningless. Random numbers. Random locations. Then, I plotted everything on a map. The disappearances formed a rough circle. Not perfect, but close enough. And at the center of that circle sat an area roughly 3 square miles wide. The same blank region appearing throughout archived reports. The same region absent from modern maps. The place Daniel had entered. The place Harold entered. The place Travis probably entered. I showed the data to my supervisor. He immediately ordered me to stop. Not suggested. Ordered. That was the first time he'd ever done that. When I pushed for an explanation, he looked genuinely frightened. Then he told me something I'd never heard before. The original Call 17 protocol wasn't actually 6 pages long. It was 19. 13 pages had been removed decades ago. Nobody knew where they went. Nobody knew what they contained, except one sentence referenced repeatedly throughout old correspondence. A sentence never fully quoted, only mentioned. According to my supervisor, every deleted page revolved around the same warning. Never approach the source of the call. Not answer. Not investigate. Approach, meaning someone once knew where the calls originated, and they were afraid of it. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the missing pages. Or Daniel. Or the cabin. At 2:17 a.m., my radio activated. I wasn't on duty. The radio was turned off. The battery had been removed. Yet a voice still came through. A familiar voice. Mine. You're running out of time. The transmission lasted 2 seconds. Then silence. I checked the battery compartment. Empty. The radio shouldn't have been capable of receiving anything. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came afterward. Because when I looked at the screen, there was a location attached to the transmission. Coordinates. Precise coordinates. Deep inside the blank region. The center of the circle. The place every missing person case seemed to orbit. The place nobody was supposed to approach. And underneath the coordinates appeared one final message. Not spoken. Typed. As though someone had sent a text through the radio itself. 3 simple words. Come alone. And for reasons I still don't fully understand. I started planning the trip. I spent 3 days pretending I wasn't going. 3 days telling myself it was a mistake. A trap. A psychological break. Anything except what I already knew. Because deep down, I had made the decision the moment I saw those coordinates. The truth was simple. I needed to know. People had disappeared for over 50 years. Rangers. Hikers. Search teams. Children. Entire families. And somehow, every trail led back to the same place. A place that officially didn't exist. Eventually, curiosity became stronger than fear. That's usually how these things happen. Nobody walks willingly into a nightmare. They just convince themselves they're walking toward an answer. I left before sunrise. No official vehicle. No GPS tracker. No radio dispatch notification. If anyone stopped me, I planned to lie. The farther I drove, the worse the weather became. Fog rolled through the forest like smoke. By noon, visibility had dropped below 50 yards. The coordinates led me to an abandoned service road, one I'd never seen before, which made no sense. I'd worked these forests for years. I knew every trail, every access road, every maintenance route. Yet somehow I'd never noticed this one. The road looked old, very old. Trees were growing through the cracked asphalt. Branches hung low over the path, like the forest was trying to swallow it. About 2 miles in, I lost GPS signal. Not unusual. What was unusual was what happened next. The coordinates disappeared. The destination marker simply vanished, as though it had never existed. I checked screenshots. Gone. I checked save locations. Gone. Even the radio message itself had disappeared. The only reason I knew where to go was because I'd memorized the route beforehand. That realization nearly sent me back. Nearly. Instead, I kept walking. The forest grew quieter, then quieter still. Eventually, I realized I couldn't hear any wildlife at all. No birds, no insects, nothing. Just my footsteps. And after a while, not even those. I noticed it when I crossed a shallow creek. Water should have splashed. It didn't. My boots hit the stream without making sound. I stopped immediately. My breathing sounded distant, muted, like my ears were underwater. Then I heard something else. Footsteps. Behind me. I spun around. Nobody there. The sound stopped instantly. I waited. Silence. Then 3 more footsteps. Closer. I turned again. Nothing. The forest remained empty. But the feeling of being watched settled over me like cold rain. The coordinates led to a ridge overlooking a narrow valley. And that's where I saw it. The cabin. Exactly as Daniel described. White walls. Green roof. Broken chimney. Impossible. The structure should not have existed. There were no roads. No utility lines. No access routes. Yet there it stood. Waiting. The moment I saw it, every instinct told me to leave. Not investigate. Not observe. Run. Instead, I raised my binoculars and nearly dropped them because people were standing in the windows. Dozens of them. Watching me. Perfectly still. None moved. None blinked. They simply stared. At first, I thought they were mannequins. Then one lifted its hand. Slowly. Deliberately. And waved. I lowered the binoculars immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs. The distance between us had to be at least half a mile. Yet somehow I knew they were looking directly at me. I don't know how. I just knew. Then something moved beside the cabin. A figure stepping out from behind the structure. My stomach twisted because I recognized him instantly. Travis, 26 years old. Exactly the same. No aging. No changes. The same man who vanished years earlier after answering the call. He looked directly toward the ridge. Toward me. Then he pointed. Not at the cabin. Not at the forest. At something behind me. I turned. Nothing. Just trees. When I looked back, Travis was gone. The cabin remained. The figures remained. But Travis had vanished. That's when the radio activated. The same radio with no battery. Static filled the air. Then a voice. Not Travis. Not Daniel. Not me. A woman. Soft. Calm. You're late. The exact same phrase Daniel described hearing. The same phrase Harold transmitted before disappearing. The same phrase connected to dozens of cases. I should have left. Instead, I started descending into the valley. Each step felt wrong. The landscape seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at it. Trees appeared where none existed moments before. Distances stretched and contracted. The cabin never seemed closer, no matter how far I walked. An hour passed, then maybe 2. My watch stopped. The sun didn't move. The shadows didn't change. Time felt broken. Eventually, I reached the clearing, and the cabin stood directly ahead. The figures remained at the windows, watching. Closer now, close enough to recognize faces. My blood ran cold, because many of them were familiar. Missing hikers, missing rangers, missing children, faces from decades of case files, all staring out through dusty glass. None appeared dead. None appeared injured. They just watched, waiting, and the front door opened. By itself, a long, slow creak. No one emerged. Something inside wanted me to enter. And somehow, I knew that if I crossed that doorway, I would never leave. The realization hit with absolute certainty. Not fear, not suspicion. Knowledge. The same way you know fire burns. I stepped backward. The door remained open. The people in the windows never moved. Then one of them smiled. A little girl, missing since 1984. Her case file still sat in our archives. The smile widened. Too wide. Far wider than any human face should manage. Then every figure inside the cabin smiled too. At exactly the same moment. like a single mind controlling dozens of bodies. And suddenly all of them spoke, not loudly, not shouting, whispering, the same phrase, again and again. We answered. My legs finally started moving. I turned and ran. Branches whipped against my face. Roots grabbed at my boots. The whispers followed. We answered. Closer. We answered. Every direction. We answered. Hundreds of voices. Thousands. The forest became a maze. Nothing looked familiar anymore. Then I saw something impossible. A search team, walking toward me. Bright uniforms. Rescue gear. Exactly what I'd hoped to find. Relief hit instantly, until I recognized the faces. Harold Beck, Daniel Mercer, Travis. Every missing rescuer connected to Call 17. Walking together, smiling, coming straight toward me. And every single one of them was carrying a radio. All of the radios activated simultaneously. The voices coming through weren't theirs. They were mine. Hundreds of versions of my own voice. All speaking at once. All repeating the same sentence. You already answered. That's when I remembered something. Something I'd never remembered before. A missing piece. A gap in my memory. A night from months earlier. A call at 2:17. A moment alone in dispatch. A microphone in my hand. My voice responding. Just once. Just one word. Copy. I had answered. Months ago. And somehow, I'd forgotten. The forest hadn't brought me there to investigate. It had brought me back.